All right. Yay. Finally live. Hello, you guys. Welcome. Let me check settings really fast. All right. Happy Sunday. Audio looks good. Video looks good. Fantastic. Hello. Can you guys hear me okay? Just want to double check. I think YouTube is doing some updates. The settings have been a little wonky, so. Good morning. Sounds great. Okay, cool. Just making sure. Welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And my apologies again for the late start. Like I said, technical things, technical glitches, but we look like we are good. Looks like we're doing all right this morning. So again, welcome. We're going to go ahead and just jump on in. Usually I like to give it a moment to allow people to come in, but I know we're getting off to a little bit of a late start. So let's go ahead. Hello, we've got lovely faces, both familiar and some new ones. Yes, I'm excited. So again, welcome you guys. Thank you so much for being here and joining me for another Sunday edition of Live Q&As, where we just hang out, talk about the law. I'm answering your questions so that my aim is always you have a better understanding, a deeper understanding, so that you can apply these in your life and see the change that you want to see in your life. Not much as far as announcements go. I am holding for this week, Valentine's Day week, I am holding a 50% off sale on my Manifest Your SP Masterclass, as well as my Self-Concept Masterclass. This is the only time this year that it will be 50% off, and that sale goes until tomorrow. The last day is tomorrow, so if you want to take advantage of that or get more information about it, you can check the description box below. You can also look for more information on my coaching programs, all that jazz. All of it is down below. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive on in. And the kitten's around here somewhere. Not sure where, but he may make an appearance. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. You're sweet. Hello, Chi-Chan. Welcome. Anna, welcome. Becca, Joe, Ava. Oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. All right. Yes, welcome back, Joe. It has been a moment. Hi, Missy. Tips for manifesting an internship. Much love. Oh, thank you. And good question. So for manifesting an internship, I same ways that we would apply for if we wanted to manifest a job, a promotion at a job, really see yourself to the best of your ability and get as clear as possible what that looks like. What would your roles be? What would your duties be in the day-to-day? And see yourself actively in that role. And when I say see yourself, that could be visualization, that could be having inner conversations, right? Either with coworkers, or it could be with friends and family, hear them congratulating you for getting the internship, things of that nature. So, I mean, the biggest thing is just getting first very clear on what you would be doing in that role so that you can best embody that, right? And then we want to put ourselves in that role in imagination. So seeing yourself there or hearing it or, affirmations, whatever technique works best for you is totally fine. But really fix on what your day-to-day would look like in that role and continue to go there. Hello from Australia. You made it. Oh, and I know it's ridiculously early where you are. That is dedication. Danielle got a good question. Can you think about your SP as much as you want as long as it's from the end state? Or is it unnatural to think of them often and I should try to forget? Good question. This is actually one that comes up a lot. So, as long as it's from the end, as long as the thoughts, the reactions are coming from that end state, like you would be reacting and responding from the place of already being together, then that's fine. It's not that we can't ever have thoughts of this person. In fact, that's probably going to feel very difficult to do, right? Because even when we're in a relationship with this person, we're going to have thoughts about him, right? It really just depends of the content of those thoughts, or what is being implied by these thoughts, right? Um, because it's probably going to feel unnatural to try to not think about them. That usually winds up in just us trying to suppress it, which is not a very effective approach. So thoughts about them are fine. Having thoughts about your SP is fine. Uh, just really what is being implied and how does it make you feel? That's really what we're gauging and what we're looking for. Oh, Anna, you've got a great question. Hi, Missy. I just listened to Neville's lecture on fourth dimensional thinking. I was wondering if you could add something about this topic, maybe an example. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, and I 1000%, if you have not read the book Thinking Fourth Dimensionally, or his 5 lessons, one of the lessons is talking about thinking fourth dimensionally, I would definitely recommend doing though. Basically, what Neville's talking about when he's speaking of thinking fourth dimensionally is using your imagination, right? Imagination is the 4D, where the physical world is the 3D. Imagination, or what's going on internally, that's all 4D. That's fourth dimensional. So fourth dimensional thinking is what we do when we are imagining, basically. So if I'm, I guess to use an example, if I'm imagining, you know, my person that I adore, and I'm imagining all the wonderful things that we do together and how great he makes me feel, that is what ultimately becomes expressed in 3D, right? Because I'm experiencing, I'm imagining and embodying the state, which then becomes reflected in 3D, right? The 3D is really reflection of the 4D, or mainly what we are identifying with, the beliefs and assumptions that we have. So thinking fourth dimensionally is basically just paying more attention to what you're imagining versus paying more attention to the 3D. That's kind of the premise that he was trying to get across. But yeah. And I do have a video. I actually just recorded a video a few days ago talking more about 4D thinking. So that should be helpful for you guys. And thank you for the super chat, Vancouver. Thank you. Could you elaborate on clarity versus specificity? I always have, I always struggle to pronounce this word. Specificity. Specificity, yes. Can you elaborate on clarity versus God damn it. Could you elaborate on clarity versus specificity that is limiting, and how to get past the idea that things must unfold in a certain order? Thanks. Absolutely. That is a fantastic question. So clarity is knowing what you want, right? It's not, it's to help us avoid double-mindedness. So if if I'm not sure what it is I desire, it's going to feel very easy for me to remain on the fence, or kind of move in and out of that desired state of consciousness, because I don't know what that desired state is, right? Or maybe I don't have a very clear idea. Specificity that is limiting would be the same as conditioning the desire. And conditioning our desire is basically to say, I cannot have this thing, I cannot, experience what I want until XYZ happens first, or I can't have this because of this. It's basically, an excuse or a condition that we have keeping us from going to the end. For example, I wish I could be with my SP, but there's a third party in the way. I wish I could be with my SP, but they live on the other side of the country. Or so there's conditions that we're putting on our desire. That would be something that is limiting, right? Obviously. So getting clear on what we want is to say, if I desire to be abundant, well, is there something that, does that mean I want to be abundant and not have to work ever again? Is there a certain like avenue that I would desire to see that? Maybe I have a desire to start a certain business. I'm passionate about teaching this skill or this, this trade, and I want to create wealth through this one avenue. Then we can get clear on that if that's what we ultimately desire. Specificity that is limiting is the same as conditioning, right? And how to get past the idea that things must unfold in a certain order, I know that one is tricky. I know it's very tricky for us to not think about the how things are going to unfold. But in truth, what we have to remind ourselves is that we won't consciously know. We cannot possibly consciously know all the different ways in which something is able to unfold or how something can unfold for us. There's just no way to, like, we're very limited in scope when it comes to the thinking mind, when it comes to the conscious thinking mind. So I know it's difficult. I know the ego always wants to know how things are going to happen. The ego always wants to feel like it's in control at all times. We're never going to know. And it's not our job to know. And so even if it's just bringing ourselves back to reminding that it's not our job, and we cannot possibly conceive of all the ways in which what we desire can be brought to us. Yeah. And as you continue to build your faith, that's not going to be something that you're going to have to grapple with anyways. So that's going to go away. So I hope that made sense. But let me know if you need me to elaborate on anything else. Hi, Missy. I felt like I was in the Sabbath. However, now I feel down in the dumps. Why is this happening? Oh, I'm so sorry. And I know it can be frustrating when it feels like we are either in the Sabbath or we feel like we've made considerable progress, and then things dip for us, or we maybe feel like we just took some steps back. I know how frustrating that is. Number one, it is common for that to happen. Progress isn't linear. We may feel frustrated because we may be dealing with some backlash. We may be feeling like we've fallen out of that desired state. This is normal. This is a normal function. If you haven't seen my video about ego backlash, I definitely recommend checking it out. I made one recently, maybe a couple months ago. It's fairly recent, explaining ego backlash, and it's essentially this is why we have those periods that feel like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, handful of steps forward, couple steps back. This is completely normal. So the first thing is just recognizing that this is a normal thing. Like the first half the battle is just knowing that we're not doing anything wrong per se, right? I also want to be clear about the Sabbath, because I think a point of confusion for people is we presume that the Sabbath is being high vibe. Like we're in this high vibe, floaty state. That's the Sabbath? Not necessarily. The Sabbath is the period of rest. The Sabbath is the period where it feels like what we desire is done. So it feels like a sense of completion. It feels like this is mine now. I don't have to do anything, right? So there's not going to be any urge to do techniques. There's not going to be any question about whether or not it's coming. We're not going to be desiring anymore from the Sabbath, right? Or at least that strong sense of longing that we once had, that's not going to be a thing anymore. So yes, the Sabbath can feel really good, but it's not this like energized over the moon type of feeling. Typically speaking, it's actually very calm. It's very peaceful. It's not very emotionally emotionally charged, typically speaking. So um, I just wanted to clarify that because it can seem like we're in the Sabbath, because a lot of times people mistake that for being like in a high vibe state, but not necessarily. The Sabbath just means it is done. And that is the knowing that we have that it is done. So what you're experiencing right now sounds a bit more like ego backlash, which is, again, completely normal. Definitely check out the video that I made about that. Um, just knowing what's happening is half the battle. You're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. Just take care of you right now and just help yourself. You will come through this. You will come through the other side of this. That I promise. Where did that kitten go? Oh, little brat. Oh, thank you guys. Can I script the event when I get my desire like a past memory, or do I have to imagine it script only from the aftermath? Oh, just making sure I understand. Can I script? So, can you script as if what you desire already happened? Like you're scripting as though it's in the past? Basically, you're scripting in past tense as if you've already had it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I hope I'm understanding your question correctly. Um, but yes, essentially, if we're affirming, if we're scripting, if we're, I mean, whatever technique we're using, we want to be imagining from the place of already having it. So it is almost a past tense as far as the desire itself and receiving that desire. We want to be imagining that from the past tense as it's already happened. But if I misunderstood your question, let me know. Sorry, it is trying to find my spot. When we shift our awareness to a different reality, does our old reality become dormant or does it cease to exist? How do we stop ourselves from shifting back? Good question. It becomes dormant. States of consciousness do not cease to exist, ever, ever. Just because we are no longer occupying a state doesn't mean that it does not exist anymore. A way to think about states, how I started to think about states when I was new to all this, is almost like driving through cities, right? Like if we're on a road trip and we're driving through these cities and, we're stopping in these towns, we're having these grand old adventures. Just like when we drive out of the city and we're no longer there, that doesn't mean the city ceased to exist, right? Like it's still there in consciousness, but it's just not in our awareness. So, um, same thing with states, right? And consciousness is the driver that's driving through these cities. I hope that explains it a little bit better. And how can we? What was the second part? How do we stop ourselves from shifting back? Well, that comes through number one, building your faith, and number two, um, learning to if we do accidentally move into an undesirable state, learning to not panic. Right? If we're constantly panicking or fearing the thought of moving into a bad state, we're actually giving attention and focus on that unwanted state. So instead, it's realizing that no matter what state you occupy, if you do move somewhere that's undesirable, you can always move again. We're never stuck in a state of consciousness. We're never at the mercy of the state. We can always move, no matter what. no matter what. So it's kind of more getting your power back by understanding and trusting that as the operant power, as the consciousness that the awareness that is animating these states, if I find myself occupying one that is not ideal, I can move. I can always move. As Neville said, like in a twinkle of an eye, you can move into a new state. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, thank you, Becca. Thank you for answering my question. You're the best. Thank you. You're sweet. Like I said, if you need me to clarify anything else, let me know. I love questions about shifting. Me too. Hi, Missy. I'm trying to manifest a new house, but it hasn't worked so far. I guess it's because I don't think I deserve a big one that from a 3D perspective, I can't afford. Any tips? Good question. So, from your observation, you desire to move into a new house, you're manifesting a new house. Um, it hasn't worked so far. And because through your observation, you think it's because you're not worthy of that new house. Is that right? That you don't deserve a big house because you can't afford it. Um, and I know that we may be grappling with self-esteem things, self-esteem issues, saying I'm not good enough, I'm not deserving enough, I'm not worthy enough. Um, well, that's just fundamentally not true. And what we want to remember is that we are free to move anywhere in imagination, right? So it's and I'm not quite sure what methods you're using or how you are imagining, right? So you may be already doing some of the things that I'm going to suggest, but if you haven't yet, if you aren't already, see that house as you already living it. Like go beyond like getting the keys, go beyond the excitement of getting the house, like see yourself living in it in the mind's eye. See yourself as already occupying that house, whatever that is, whatever that looks like. And just continue to go back there. Because if we're still noticing feelings of questioning, hesitation, doubt, uncertainty, double mindedness, then we have not occupied that state enough. we haven't occupied that state enough. So I would really focus on just going back there as many times as you can, as much as you are able to really capture the familiarity of that new state, of that new house. Like truly let yourself live in it until when you come out of that imaginal act, it feels like something that is already guaranteed to you, if that makes sense. But yeah. Yeah, if you need me to elaborate on anything else, though, let me know. Thank you for the super chat, Kryptonian. I'm so sorry. I didn't even get a notification. YouTube. I didn't get a notification about your super chat. My apologies. Please read my 3 questions from above. All right, let me go find your questions. One sec. Where are those questions? Oh, here we go. My deepest desire is to start my life again from like 2005 onwards. Obviously, it's compulsory. I retain my current consciousness so I can make new choices. I've known creation is finished for years. I understand it should be possible and heard impossible stories, resurrection from death, etc., but I hardly believe more earthly desires, e.g., becoming a millionaire, let alone full blown time travel. 99% in the manifestation community believe time travel is possible. Please help A, remove doubt because it's causing me extreme agitation, and B, how do I actually achieve such big slash impossible things? Good question. Yeah, and for the big things, and I'm talking like not just manifesting a specific person or a lot of money, but if we're talking the things that we once thought impossible, time travel, moving into different worlds, shifting into new realities, right? These really big, sort of out there, almost sci-fi sounding events. If depending on our trust and faith in the law, like where it is overall, like that's really where we want to start. So, what is your faith in the law in general for the maybe the more reasonable or rational things? Where is your faith in the law in that regard? Do you have conviction that for the earthly pleasures, the material things like that we can manifest that, but we can't go into things that seem more broad and things that seem more impossible? Or do you maybe still struggle with the idea that you can manifest even material things? I think you said, oh, you hardly believe more earthly desires, e.g., yeah. It's going to feel damn near impossible. Damn near impossible. It's going to feel very difficult to believe these massively unbelievable things that we've perceived as not possible, if we don't have faith in the law for even the material things. So right now, I would be focusing on building that faith. I would be focusing on building that faith, because the agitation is coming from the internal battle that you're having with yourself due to those fears and those doubts, right? And the way that we remove those fears, the way that we transcend those fears, is by proving to ourselves the law works, that the law is real, and that the law is not selective, right? That if all states of consciousness exist in 4D and we can experience them as 3D, then nothing should be off the table, right? So, yeah, it's going to feel damn near impossible to suspend disbelief if we are on the fence about manifesting a cup of coffee and then trying to manifest traveling through time. Not saying it's not possible. There's nothing that is impossible. There is nothing that is impossible. Nothing is impossible to God. But I would focus right now first on building your faith. And I've made some videos talking about that. If you want to, look up Missy Renee, Building Faith in the Law, Testing the Law. I've made a couple videos on some tips and things to help you with just that. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you for the super chat. Hi, after my SP split from me 2 months ago, we are seeing each other a few times a week as friends. I'm manifesting him back, so how do I act in the 3D? Good question. So if you are interacting with SP in the 3D, I mean, act as you would, I guess. Act as you normally would. Because this isn't really so much about like trying to fake it per se. I know some people teach that this is like fake it till you make it, and it's not necessarily that. Yes, ideally we want to act from a place that is ideal. Like we don't want to, engage with the 3D, fight with the 3D, anything like that, if we can help it. But I mean, if you're talking like you want to, if at moments you're feeling maybe confrontational or like you need to have a serious conversation or things like that, first do so in imagination. Go first through imagination, right? Everything is first created in the mind and is then outpictured. So yeah, I mean, as far as what we do in the 3D, in that interim, in that space between when we've impressed a desire and when it comes out pictured in the 3D, in that space, we just go about our day. We just act as we would, act as we normally would, so long as it's not ideally like getting confrontational with the 3D. That's the only thing I say. Like I would avoid that at all costs because it's just exhausting. Yeah. I hope that answered the question, but if you need me to elaborate on anything else, let me know. What? After I rewatched your video about shifting to the place with the flea market by the ocean, I had a vivid lucid dream about the exact same place. Ah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So cool. Traveling's wild. Traveling is wild. Thank you for the super chat, Aaron. I feel in the Sabbath lately, if there's a how unfolding and it may take some time, why do I also hear quite a bit in the community that our manifestations don't come quickly or aren't here yet because we aren't in the state? I feel in this state. What are your thoughts? I feel in the Sabbath lately, if there's a how unfolding. Okay, good questions. I'm pretty sure I am understanding and following what you're saying. Um, so you feel like you're in the Sabbath, and if it's unfolding right now, and it may take some time. Well, first, I guess what is the assumption there that it's going to take time? Is where I'm kind of curious. Um, is that just a natural assumption that what's happening is maybe it's such a big desire that's unfolding that certain things would need to fall into place first? And I don't know if that's what you mean. Um, but to answer the question about the reason that things take some time to manifest, the reason that things are not here, the biggest reason that things take time to manifest, especially if it has been a long time, is due to our double-mindedness. Yeah. Not necessarily that we're not in the state, just that we're back and forth between the desired state and maybe the old state, the undesirable one. So we may be moving back and forth between the two. That's, typically speaking, that is usually why things do not show up in a reasonable period of time. Not always, but again, I'm not speaking in absolutes. But if you feel that you're in the Sabbath, um, I would first take away the assumption that it's going to take a long time, because if that is an assumption that you're holding, then that is exactly how it's going to unfold, if that makes sense. So what we desire, like when we have a desire for something, it's going to show up in the way that feels most natural for us, what we assume. So if I have an assumption that this thing's going to take a long time to come to fruition, then that's going to be my experience, right? So I think the best thing that you can do here is take away that assumption that it's going to take a long time, right? Not necessarily that you're not in the right state, but I think that assumption there is probably what you want to get rid of. Going back to my spots. Hi, Missy. How can I build faith in the law when manifesting the small stuff doesn't work for me? Good question. This is unfortunately a common question that comes up. If we're, and this is why I'm hesitant to recommend testing this on small things first, because it really depends where you may be now. Like, obviously, everybody's coming into the law of assumption. Um, Everybody stumbles into this for different reasons, but a lot of the times it's because we have naturally a strong desire for something. So when we're taught to test the law on small things, trying to manifest small things, what ends up happening a lot of time is we we may not have attachment to the small things themselves, like a cup of coffee or, a butterfly, whatever. It's not that we have an attachment to those things, but we may have attachment to the idea itself, right? The concept of manifestation itself, and like really desperately wanting this thing to be true. So one thing that I've noticed is that we write out a list of small things, and then days or maybe a couple weeks go by, and then we start looking for them. And then we start being aware of the absence of them. And then we're constantly feeling frustrated because, well, where is it? Why hasn't this small thing shown up yet? And then it turns into, well, if I can't manifest the small thing, how can I manifest this big thing? It can lead into a spiral, basically. Because the key with testing on small things, trying to manifest small things, is we must be able to set it and forget it. It will show up when we're not thinking about it, when we're not looking for it. That's how this works. That is just how this works. So if that feels difficult to do, if it feels difficult to not constantly think about these smaller things or look for these smaller things, then I would instead not try to manifest anything, but just observe all the ways in which your 3D does respond to your imaginal acts naturally. So I'm talking the natural thoughts that you have, the natural reactions, just your natural state of being, and then see if it coincides with the 3D environment. Note the things that do show up naturally, right? So I may, have a thought one day that, I'm craving donuts, and then I go to work and somebody's shown up with donuts and left them in the break room. I may have a song stuck in my head, and then a couple minutes later I get in my car and, it's playing, or I walk into a store and that song is playing, right? These little things, right, or big things, are ways that we could begin to see that everything is my consciousness outpictured. So that may be a better approach. If trying to manifest small things has not been working, if it's leaving you with more doubt, then I would instead just switch to observation and don't try to manifest anything at first. But yeah, that's a really good question, though. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Ishi. And thank you, Cryptopian. I want 100% success rate with manifesting, but I always get partial manifestations. Why and how to solve it? Please see 2 examples below. Visualize eating pizza while discussing goal achieved, only pizza manifested. Visualize toy elephant got a bracelet with elephant painted on. So check out the video I made about buying the pearl of great price. If you type in the search bar, there should be 2 videos. One more recently where I talk about this specifically. The reason that we see partial manifestations, again, our own double-mindedness. And I know it can feel very frustrating, but it really does come back to building faith. There's a reason Neville would say that the formula for all of this is imagination plus faith. So if we are lacking in that faith or we are teetering back and forth, I know it's going to feel incredibly difficult to have a 100% success rate, right? Also, the importance of self-observation, because we want to really start to see the connection between the relationship between the inner world and the outer world. And a lot of times, because we're on autopilot, we don't always recognize what impressions we are leaving, what seeds we are planting, so that when it shows up, we're like, why the hell did it show up like that? Or, why did this thing show up for me? Because we are not as observant as we might want to be, as we may need to be, to really start to see the relationship between the inner world and the outer world, right? So kind of, like I talked about in the last question, the importance of building your faith. And because inevitably we have to buy that pearl. At some point, we have to buy that pearl. We have to go all in or we have to walk away. Those are the two options. Because if we continue to sit on the fence, if we continue to waffle back and forth between believing and not believing, we're going to see inconsistent results. We're going to see partial manifestations, and it's going to be incredibly annoying. But check out the video that I made talking about buying the pearl. I talk about my own personal experience with basically what you just described. Yeah. Hi, Missy. How are the cats? I'm manifesting an apartment so I can get another cat or two. Aw. Congratulations on your new apartment. The cats are good. They're mischievous and happy as always. And I just got my kitty incubator for the little neonates. So new kittens will be coming soon. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, Kelly. Hello. Good to see you. Good to have you here. Hi, Missy. My faith continues to grow, and sorry, my microphone's in the way. I have less doubt as the days pass, but with that, I am also starting to miss the physical things. Oh, I know this is part 1 of 2, so I'm sorry for having it in slow mode. I know that could be annoying. I mean, first, that is awesome to hear that your faith is growing. That is wonderful. That's truly what we want to. I mean, I'm going to keep stressing the point over and over again. I don't care. Like, I'm very repetitive for a reason. It's very intentional that I repeat the same things over and over again. Faith is so important. So important. So that's amazing to hear that you're noticing less and less doubt. And as far as missing the physical things, yeah, I'm curious to see what your response or follow to that is going to be. Kisses, holding hands, etc. I know this is normal and I hate to focus on the 3D, but how to combat that? Good to see you too. And I got my purple unicorn yesterday. I told you. That's amazing. That's amazing. Oh, but yeah, and we're gonna have moments, certainly, where we miss the physical connection, right? And that's, I mean, that's a normal thing to happen. As humans, we are so conditioned to the physical world. I mean, this is the experience we're having. This is what feels to us like the real world. Because it is a physical experience and a physical interaction. Of course, we may have moments where we miss that physical interaction, especially when it's with another person. It's completely normal, but it does pass. Like it's not going to be, if we do find ourselves feeling, nostalgic or missing hugging them, give yourself a moment if you need to. let it naturally pass or let it naturally process. The other thing, the other really cool thing is the more that we do exercise this imagination muscle, because it is very much like a muscle, the more realistic the things that we imagine are going to feel and going to become. So it is absolutely possible to imagine something to the degree and that it feels just as real and just as solid as if it were happening in 3D. So that way, if we desire to have a physical experience, it's like we literally can at any time. Now, of course, it may be practice to get to that point, but that is absolutely a thing. We're only using a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what we are capable of with imagination. Like that truly is the creative power of God. That is our creative power. But naturally, of course, for most of us, at least at first, it's not going to feel nearly as good as the physical 3D experience. And that's completely normal. Just give yourself a moment if need be to miss them and to miss the encounter, and it will pass. It'll process and it will pass. Yeah. And as soon as you are able to, without forcing it, but as soon as you're able to, just gently let yourself go back to the end. Yeah. Oh, it's not a sign of lack. No, I mean, in that moment, yes, we are clearly in a state of the absence of our desire, but it's again, we're always moving in and out of state. So even if in that moment we're having that feeling of missing them or in the state of missing them, it'll pass quickly because it's what state we occupy most often that will outpicture. Not that we need to be 100% of the time in the desired state. Never have them feel like we're never allowed a moment of sadness. We're never allowed a moment of doubt. We're like, no, no. If we do occupy that state, we inevitably and more quickly move out of it, right? And so it's fine. I guess my point is that it's fine. This is normal. Just keep going. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys for the super chats. Ah! Thank you, Francesca. Thanks, that answered my question. I will just act normal without confrontation. I still think you are Neville reincarnated, and I love your support. That's 3 weeks in a row. Oh, you are so sweet. You are so sweet. Thank you. I will take that as a huge compliment, sincerely. And you are so welcome. You are so welcome for the support, always. Thank you for the super chat, Mary. How is Andrea with the 10-year manifestation? Andrea? Andrea? Are you talking about are you talking about Haley? Are you talking about Haley and her SP journey? The one of 15 years manifesting her person after 15 years of no contact? I think that's what you mean. I just want to be sure because I'm like, I don't know if I have a story about an Andrea. If you are referring to Haley, things are. That's actually something I want to keep a surprise. There is an update coming. There's an update coming. That's all I'm going to say. But everyone is good. That is what I will say. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much. All of you, thank you so much for the super chats. I think you were first, Koi Army. I'm just trying to see if you had a question that maybe going back up, you had a question a bit ago. What's the Haley update? I'm so excited. Oh, patience. Patience. I'm not spoiling it. Um, Koyomi, I didn't know if you had a question. I'm trying to go back and seeing if there was one that you answered that you had earlier, and I can't find it. If you did have a question and I missed it, if you could just do me a favor and maybe retype that, I'll be keeping eyes on that though. And thank you again for the super chat, and thank you, Leela. Hi, Missy. When manifesting an SP, I tend to up slash put him on the pedestal, but when I try to detach, I just end up losing the desire altogether. Be perceived as like us giving up and moving on. That's not what we mean here by detachment. Detachment just means detachment from that old state of separation, state of desiring them, longing for them, having them up on the pedestal, basically. That's what we're aiming to detach from, not the desire itself. I know you said that there's a part two. Maybe you are still typing that out. Um, but I think it's pretty common. A lot of us on an SP journey at some point have them up on that pedestal, and even get, obsessive. I was there. I totally get it. Um, and this is why the emphasis and focus needs to come back to the self. This is why I try to really press all the time that this is not about us trying to get the 3D to change or trying to force a change to the outside. The only one changing here, ever, no matter what we are desiring, no matter what we're manifesting, the only one changing here is ourself. Period, point blank in a story, which is why it's really stressed the importance of self concept and really imagining yourself as the person who already has them, is like you're essentially moving into that timeline. You're moving into that reality in imagination. You're occupying that space in imagination, right? But not from the place of like trying to get it to work in the future. I hope I'm making sense, but I'm also waiting for part two. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Because from what you're describing, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it starts with this sort of putting them on the pedestal, strong desiring for them, longing for them, and ultimately giving up on the manifestation, right? Yeah, this is why, again, the emphasis needs to be on, our focus is on who is that version of us that is already in that loving, committed, fulfilling relationship. And then we are being that in the mind. But I will keep eyes out. Oh, there's part two. How can I detach from the desire while still desiring it? It almost seems like two opposite things. Yes. So again, it's not that we're detaching from the desire. Because when you are imagining and you are becoming in, like, through these imaginal acts, like the whole point of all of this is to become the person that you desire to be in imagination, that you are, occupying this new state, you're having this new experience in imagination, so that it feels like you are now this person. Like, that's really how we change our beliefs, is we have new experiences. Right? We leave new impressions subconsciously. We plant new seeds, and that is what causes the change in ourself, and with that, the change in the outside. By doing that, you're naturally going to detach from the state of desiring, as in not having them, to the state of having them, the state of being that version of you that has what you desire, right? because there's already a state of consciousness. There's already a reality that exists where the two of you are together happily in a loving, committed relationship. So you are putting your conscious awareness in that. Like you are becoming conscious and aware of that reality, what that would be like. And by doing that, you're naturally going to detach from the place of like obsessing or desiring them, the absence of them, right? So detachment is a natural process. It occurs naturally when we live in the end, when we live from that end. I hope I'm making sense. I cannot still obsess and desire something that I already have, right? Northwest Wind. What was the key in trusting that your desire for your husband was God's gift, but also that you guys had that special connection? When did you no longer feel any doubt about it and knew it was yours? Good question. I knew from the moment I met him. I knew from moment one that I met him because it was unlike an experience. I've never had that experience with anyone else ever. Um, I mean, of course, there were people from my past that I was in love with at the time. I mean, of course, but this was different, and we can know that, we can feel that it is something quite notable, right? Um, and what other reason would I have this desire if not to experience, right? And there was absolutely that connection that I had not experienced with anyone else ever, you know, before or since. So when the more that I became to understand this, the more that I came to understand desires, where they come from, and it might help to check out the 12 disciples to have a bit more insight to that. Because with desire, God's gift is not just the desire itself, but it also comes with the means and ways of expression. So God's gift is not just to the desire for this thing, this experience, this person. It's also comes with the means and ways of its expression, right? So as I continue to build my trust in the law, and as I continue to experience this firsthand with other things, you stop questioning it. I hope that made sense. If I need to clarify, let me know. All right, going back up. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anyone. Thank you again, Kryptonian. Thank you for that super chat. For some reason, I'm not getting notifications of that, so I'm so sorry. I visualize in sats for 40 to 60 minutes. I struggle to feel good, but I can make myself 8 out of 10 present in my scene by focusing on details and adding as much senses and tones of reality as I can. Is this okay? Visualize in sats 40. I mean, yes. The only part that I question is the struggle to feel good. If it's feeling like you're trying to force yourself to feel good, uh, I mean, because what should happen is by the feeling that we're going after, it's the acceptance that this is real for us, that this is true for us. So it's not necessarily that we have to have like these big, huge emotions, but it should leave us with that sense of like satisfaction, or the sense of this is an experience that I just had, right? So if that is the case, if you're noting like, I guess, the experience that you're having and it feels real to you, then it should be fine, if I'm understanding correctly. But we don't want to try to struggle to force an emotion. That's something I want to be clear about. None of this should feel forced. This should not feel forced. If it is feeling forced, we're putting too much conscious effort behind it. And if that's the case, first thing is relax. We got to relax. We got to relax even deeper. I hope that makes sense, but let me know if I need to clarify. Thank you so much for the super chat, Jenny. If I feel that SP will come back sooner or later, is it still good to be open to other men? Or will the whole thing slow down the manifestation? Good question. Are you talking about like going on dates or like interacting with other people? Like, if you already know that this is done, you already have that conviction. I mean, once you have that conviction, once you have that certainty, you can go about your days. I mean, we don't want to put our life on hold or on pause by any means. But if you're talking about like open to a relationship with other men, then maybe if it feels like there may be some double-mindedness going on there, I would maybe meditate on that. I would maybe first get clear on what exactly it is that you desire, right? Again, I may be misunderstanding the question. Yeah, because really the biggest thing we want to avoid is double-mindedness. So if you are certain that you desire your SP, you know that that's what you want, and you know that that is fixed for you, that is done for you, then you are free to go about your day. You can drop it and live go about your life basically. If it feels like there's uncertainty there, then I would reflect first on what it is that you truly desire, to avoid double-mindedness. But if I misunderstood the question, let me know. Thank you for the super chats. Oh my goodness, you guys. Thank you, Vancouver. Sharing to help others struggling with the how of SP. I met him through Army Pen Pal program while he was deployed, randomly matched 17 years ago this February. He is my soul person and our story is crazy. Don't give up. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. And it just goes to show how seemingly random our desires can show up for us in a way that most ways in which like things manifest, especially bigger things, they tend to show up in a way that we would not have consciously conceived that, right? We would have never consciously conceived that this is how what we desired will show up for us. Like 99 times out of 100, it's going to be somewhere like I would have never thought it was going to unfold like that. Thank you for that, though. Sincerely, thank you. And thank you, Piper Tarot. I'm affirming in my mind often that I'm moving out of a friend's house next week, Saturday. I'm not upset that I'm here, but my body is ready to go. Also expecting money in my account. Good. Good. Yes. Yes. And the important thing is how you feel, right? The important thing, more important than the techniques, is how they make you feel. So if the affirmations are the best way for you to move into that state of knowing, moving into that state where it feels done for you, then you are solid, my friend. You are solid. Yeah. All right, going back up. Where was my spot? Hi, Missy. Hope you're doing well. How do you get rid of the fear of your manifestations not lasting? And by the way, I miss your podcast so much. I hope you'll be updating it soon. I do have a new podcast episode coming out this week. Heads up on that. Thank you. How do we get rid of the fear of the manifestations not lasting? Good question. I mean, again, this is going to come down to how much you trust yourself as the operant power. Because if we have that fear that we're just going to see, like we're going to receive something only to lose it again, that implies that there's a power outside of us, right? Because what else could explain the fear of something taking it away or losing it, right? So perhaps there might still be a fear of something outside of you that has power over you, and that's never the case. Never the case. Ever. So, I mean, how do we get over that fear? Trust in ourselves as the operant power. That if I ever at any point, at any time, see and become aware of something in my 3D that is not desirable, that is unwanted, I don't panic, I don't have a fit, because I know that these are all just moving, we're just moving through states. And if I accidentally and unintentionally moved into a state that's not ideal, moved into a reality that's not ideal, a timeline that's not ideal, I can move out of it. Right? Because the only way that it won't last is if we trust that there's a power outside of us that could take it from us. Right? Or that we are at the mercy of something outside of us if we lose it again. And that's not the case. And this is also where I really, really, really emphasize the importance of changing self, not changing the 3D. The 3D is a natural mirror. Like the 3D is always going to mirror whatever we believe, whatever we assume in consciousness, whatever we deem to be true, right? Whatever state I am occupying, that is going to always be reflected. So it is always the self that changes. So if I'm worried about the mirror reflecting something different, that's because I still have not solidified myself as the one who makes the change in the mirror. I hope that makes sense. But yeah. Missy, what do you do personally to maintain your healthy relationship now? Good question. The biggest things that I did, well, number one, I revised a lot of scenarios and circumstances of the past, a lot of the beliefs and assumptions that I had formed growing up that were very unhealthy. My fears of abandonment, my fears of neglection, not being good enough, not being chosen. I revised and imagined different, right? I imagined things differently so that instead I was somebody who was more confident. I was somebody who felt more secure in herself, not just relationships, but in general. Somebody who it feels safe to trust, feels safe in general. So those were main areas that because I knew that if I still had these core beliefs, if I still held these core concepts that were premised in fear, that were based and rooted in fear, then it was going to continue to show me outpicturing of things that are shit, basically. So that's, again, that's why I say when we change, the 3D changes, and it has to continue to reflect, especially based on those core beliefs, those core assumptions. Those are absolutely important. Absolutely. Because 95% of the time we're operating subconsciously on autopilot based off of the core beliefs and assumptions we hold. Yeah. But I also made a video talking about what I did specifically when I was manifesting my person. So maybe you want to check out that video. That should give you some insight as well. Thank you guys for the super chats. My God. Oh. Thank you, Imagine. How to learn to visualize. I see random people in the middle of my wish fulfilled state and I start the scene again. See the above two comments. Uh, um, I'm trying to find your comments. I'm sorry. But how to learn to visualize? So I have made a video talking about things that we can do to strengthen the mind's eye, so to speak. If you type in the search bar, Missy Renee visualization, uh, I'm pretty sure I made at least 2 videos on that topic. But yeah, I would look up those videos if you haven't seen them yet, because there are things that we can do to exercise that muscle, so to speak. There's things that we can do to really strengthen the mind's eye. Namely, one thing that I did repeatedly was I would take an object, I would take something, in my vicinity, and I would just observe, and I would really get as clear of an image on it as I could. I would, with as much tones of reality, with all of my senses, I would try to get as much of a picture, so to speak, and then I would close my eyes and I would try to replicate that with as much sensory vividness as I could muster, right? Like what it felt like, the weight of it, the texture, whatever, whatever senses can be invoked. So that's one way. Um, Again, definitely check out that video that I made. And I think you had a comment earlier that I saw about what if we can't really see the person's face when we're visualizing? Uh, that's fine. We may not have like vivid imaginations at first. It might not be that it's crystal clear, ultra HD 8K definition. That's fine. As long as we know what is going on in the scene, as long as we know who the person is and what is taking place, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. That is all that matters. And did I miss anything else? If in the 3D we are in no contact, but my end is getting married to my SP, how do I imagine the intermediary movement like constant communication? Well, we don't have to do that. I would go to the end. If you, I mean, if you are able to, if it if you're not, I mean, if you're noticing a lot of resistance, maybe breaking it down in steps may be helpful. Um, but if able, I would go to the end. Um, because whatever happens in that interim between now physically and the desired outcome physically will unfold naturally, if I'm understanding the question right. Can we not imagine without visualizing? We can absolutely imagine without visualizing. Visualization does not equal imagination. I know a lot of people think those terms are synonymous. They're not. They're not. Visualization is one aspect of imagination. That is one way that we imagine, seeing pictures in our mind. But imagination is your inner world, all of it. It's all the things taking place in the mind. So it's our thoughts, it's our inner conversations, feeling senses, all the things that are taking place internally in the mind. That is all imagination taking place within imagination. So it's not that we have to visualize. No, not at all. And I'm going back up because I think I missed a super chat up here, and I'm so sorry. Tam, yes, I'm so sorry I missed that. What is the difference between daydreaming and imagining? Good question. So, and I've made a video talking about this, but daydreaming versus living in the end or imagining the end. When daydreaming is more from a place of longing, right? Like we are thinking about something from the place of desiring it, but not being that. Like you're still keenly aware of the separation. It's like daydreaming longingly about someday hopefully being married to this person or someday having abundance and having a successful business, whatever it might be. But daydreaming is distinctly that feeling of in the future or hopefully longingly someday. It may feel good, but it's then like we come out of it and it's like bittersweet. Like, yeah, but if only I wish that could happen, but that can't. Like, that's daydreaming. That's daydreaming. Whereas, imagining from the end is you are experiencing an imagination already being the person you desire to be, already having what it is you desire to have. It's thinking from it, from the place of like it's already been experienced. You already got the thing that you want, and now you are imagining from that place. And coming out of it, you feel calm, you feel confident, you feel good. Not that sense of like longing for it. Like that sense of longing for it should neutralize if we are thinking from the end, if we are imagining from the end. But check out the video that I made about that as well. All right, let me go back up. Do you think Neville's teachings can be a hint to the quantum physics? I think science is just starting to, we're just starting to see, some degree of verification in what Neville was teaching. When Neville was teaching about infinite states, he was essentially talking about infinite realities, parallel realities. Creation being finished means that, you know, all things exist, right? So parallel realities, parallel timelines already exist, which we are starting to see, especially if you go and look up the Nobel Prize winners in physics for 2022 and how they were able to prove that the universe is not real in the sense of like a singular universe. It's a trip. It's a wild trip, but I would definitely look that up if you haven't yet. But yeah, we're starting to see science catching up to some of the things that Neville was talking about 60 years ago. Because though there was theories, or not even theories, that obviously quantum physics was, there was a lot of debate between physicists about the whole idea of like multiverse and string theory and infinite realities. It was before seen as more preposterous. A lot of physicists didn't want to accept that. We're starting to see more and more now that that's actually looking more and more like the case. Hi, Missy. I had a similar dream experience. I woke up from a lucid dream into another physical location with sensations of actually being awake, not a dream, physically there. I was too scared, though, and brought myself back to my bed. I wish I could have stayed longer, but it spooked me. I mean, first off, that's amazing. That is amazing. And it certainly can be a scary experience because we haven't ever experienced anything like that before, right? So it is not uncommon that we may be kind of spooked out of it at first. With practice, you're going to start to become more familiar with it until it's no longer a thing that frightens you. So keep going. That is so cool. That is so cool. Missy, how to manifest something that multiple people are imagining having, like a job position? Thank you. Good question. First, we want to understand that in our reality, in our experience, the one that we're having through our eyeballs, we are the one selecting the state all the time. Like that's what we are doing. So when it comes to other people in competition, it doesn't really exist. We believe that it does, but it's not a thing that actually exists because in your reality, you are the operant power. So you are deciding in each moment what state or what reality to occupy, whether that be the one where you get the position or the one where somebody else gets the position. It's still you that is selecting it, either knowingly or unknowingly. I hope that makes sense. I know it's difficult to wrap our head around, but this is why we say there is no competition. Everyone is you pushed out because the only one in your reality who's selecting the state of experience is you. All right, going back up. Hi, Missy. Weird question, but do bad desires exist? I was really mistreated by my ex, and I would love to see some type of justice happen. Should I focus on forgiving or embracing my desire for revenge? Uh, I mean, first off, I'm horribly sorry for the experience that you had. That is awful, and would not wish it on anyone, anyone. Um, unfortunately, yes. When we say creation is finished, all states exist. That's not just the good states, right? It's all states. It's all scenarios, outcomes, circumstance. If you are capable of conceiving it, it is something that exists. Now, do I recommend going into a place of like vengeance? I don't. I don't. And I know that not because like we don't want to focus our attention and energy on bad things happening to other people because we're really just giving our attention to bad things, basically. Um, and that's essentially the golden rule. Do unto others, because whatever we are focusing our attention on, even if we are thinking about it happening to somebody else, we're still giving our attention to vindication, right? We're still giving it to like if it's stemming from a place of wishing harm on another people, even if it is justified, even if you feel it's deserved, I don't ever recommend it. I don't ever recommend it, just because that's not a place that I would want you to dwell in. Yeah. Hey, Missy, I need to go back to my self concept because now I have my relationship and there's nothing wrong with my boyfriend. But I sometimes recreate my old mindset. I need to let go. Yes. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And I mean, first off, congratulations on the relationship. That is wonderful to see. But this is exactly why there is so much emphasis and importance on the change in self, changing the self concept. Not for the sake of trying to get something or someone else, but so that we fundamentally change. Because this is how we avoid a recreation of old patterns, past events, unwanted events, and things of that sort. That was the main thing that I focused on after the second breakup. When my husband and I broke up the second time, um, it was no longer about needing to like get him to change. I needed to fundamentally change. If I wanted to see something different and experience something different, I had to be different. If I continued to keep alive those old conceptions, those old beliefs, those old assumptions, it was only going to repeat history, basically. So it's good to see that you are aware of that. because I again, I cannot stress enough the importance of it. Yeah. This is all the change taking place within you. Yes. Let it go. Let it go. Missy, I have some awesome news I wanted to share. I manifested a new apartment. Granted, it's next to my family's apartment, but it's a stepping stone. Yay! Congratulations. Oh, that's awesome. Wonderful to see that. Yes. Congrats on the new place. Where was I? Is there a point where we should adjust our practice? This is an important question. Is there point where we should adjust our practice because we are doing something wrong, like not saying anything for a year? Thank you, dear. Oh, thank you, Sina. This is important. This is important. Because what we want to make sure that we're being aware of at all times is not what's happening in 3D, but what's taking place within us. The gauge that we should be using at all times with anything that we desire, is the internal world, like our own reactions, our own actions. So it's not about like whether or not we're seeing movement out here. It's whether or not we're seeing movement in here with how we are feeling. What are we continuing to identify with? What are the beliefs and assumptions? Are we still identifying with that old story? Are we still thinking and reacting from that old place, or is it from the new desired place? Like that is how we know. That is the gauge. We should hopefully want to see that change has taken place within us. So if it feels like it's been a long time with no movement, really hone the observation, the inner observation. Like, am I still identifying with this old story? When I think of my person or I think of what I desire, what are the first initial reactions and thoughts that come up for me? And does that line up with my desired state? Or is it still coming from this old story of fear and lack and what have you? So yeah, I really probably more than anything else, my aim is to get us from using the 3D as a gauge and instead using this as a gauge, because that will tell us everything we need to know. Um, I want to shift to my desired reality, which is the total and complete opposite of this one. What steps should I take to shift to this reality as seamlessly and efficiently as possible? Thanks, Missy. Absolutely. Well, I mean, and that is sort of the point of the techniques here. That's really the point of why we are utilizing these techniques and ways of imagining so that we can best embody this desired state. Now, if you're referring to like quantum leaping or making that huge jump in a relatively short period of time, um, practice SATs, get familiar with SATs, get good at SATs, get familiar with that hypnagogic state. That is the doorway to everything. Literally everything. Everything, everything, everything. How do we deal with being on the mental diet for a few days, but then burnout? It happens to me each time. I have a couple good days and then back to the doubts. Yeah, unfortunately, this is not uncommon. Burnout happens when we are putting too much conscious effort into this. Essentially, we're trying too hard. We're trying to fight and strain, um, usually from what people think of mental diet, they think of, like, flipping every negative thought, pushing back against our intrusive thoughts, which is not always the most effective way to do this at all. In fact, more often than not, that's going to be absolutely exhausting and absolutely lead to burnout. So it's not mental diet is not flipping our negative thoughts. Mental diet is just observation of the thoughts that come up for us. But we're not engaging with the intrusive bad thoughts. We're not giving it our time and effort and attention because that's what we're doing if we're trying to flip them and fight with them. We're only breathing life into them, right? It's not going to be the most helpful thing in the world, and it's going to make us feel exhausted. Um, so I would make sure that the approach that you're taking to this is path of least effort. Keyword being least effort. If it feels like we are trying too damn hard, we're not relaxed enough. So first get yourself as relaxed as possible and allow yourself to enjoy the imaginal acts purely for the sake of enjoying the experience of it. If we're trying to affirm or visualize or flip thoughts from an anxious state, then trying to get ourselves to a place that feels good from that very anxious state is going to feel incredibly difficult. So, first thing we want to note, if we are anxious, relax. Get ourselves relaxed first. Don't try to fight the intrusive thoughts and really focus on just allowing yourself to breathe through it. It does get easier. It does get easier. What if when I want to use sets, I always fall asleep? LOL. That's normal. That's normal. It's all too likely that you're gonna fall asleep the first few times you attempt sets. How maybe even the first couple, maybe the first dozen, 2 dozen times that you attempt sets, you're gonna fall asleep too soon. It's gonna happen. Let it happen. Unfortunately, I think for a lot of people, we get frustrated with sats because it is something that is so different and it's something that we're not used to doing. It's very easy for us to get frustrated and give up. And not to I want to be clear, it's not that we have to do sats in order to manifest, not at all, but there is so much power in that drowsy state, and I really do hope that each and every one of you are taking advantage of that, to the best of our ability. If we fall asleep too soon, that's fine. Because when we wake up, we're already in sats. We're already in that drowsy place. So, and every single one of us wakes up in the morning. So, even if you fall asleep too soon, too early, guess what? When you wake up, you're in sats. But with practice and playing around with it, you're gonna get more familiar with it. You're gonna get the hang of it. Trust me. I made a YouTube short video about just this, like the struggles and difficulties that we have with sats. And because I've been there and I know that frustration. I know it way too well. So if I can go from somebody who was unable to visualize at all, struggled greatly with doing sats, to somebody that can experience a world so vivid and incredibly real as the room that I'm in right now, if I can do it, you can do it too. How can I manifest my cats being best friends? I've had them for 7 years to no avail, and I'm ready to get this ish on lockdown now that I can tap into conscious manifestation. Oh my goodness. I had the same thing with the little orange boy that we found wandering around outside. When we brought him in, my older cat was not a fan. They did well. He loved her. She hated him. So I went through similar experience. Um, Imagine them hanging out together. Imagine them being inseparable. See them cuddling together. See them being friends. I did that maybe once or twice and then dropped it, and now they get along, right? I know it might feel that, oh, because it's been so long, this change can't take place. That's not true. I don't care if it's been 10 years. I don't care if it's been 10 minutes. Time is not relevant here. See them as best friends. Opposite problem. I can't fall asleep after doing sats. My brain just keeps repeating the scene and sleep goes away. Yep. Yep. And these are always like the two main issues that people run into, either falling asleep way too soon or staying awake because the mind is like now all wired and buzzed. Um, if the case is that you find difficulty falling asleep when doing sats, you're still too alert. You're still too conscious. A lot of times we may be, you know, eager to get started and we jump into our sat scene before we've had ample time to relax. Yeah. Um, it may help if you have any windows during the day to just practice like, getting as relaxed as possible, but bringing yourself up right before you fall asleep. And then practice that. Just practice going deeper. And you can set an alarm or something in case you actually do fall asleep. You can set an alarm to kind of, wake yourself back up again, but just practice getting yourself as deeply relaxed, but then deliberately waking yourself back up again. That was something that I did to really help hone in on that. I keep telling them you're best friends, dang it, when they fight, but I'm trying. Oh, I know. I know. Uh, that's too funny. How about this? I'm going to congratulate you in advance. Are you telling me that they are now best friends? It's been a year of affirming, but my parents are not accepting my SP. What to do? Good question. Well, and this is why it's what we have to remember is it's not necessarily the technique that is going to manifest or that is going to make the thing change in the 3D. It's what we are believing and assuming ultimately. So, have you noticed a change in your beliefs and assumptions? That's really what we're gauging. Or is there still a lot of a belief and attachment to the 3D circumstance? As if it feels like there's more belief to the 3D circumstance than what you have been affirming, then it may be uh, beneficial to play around with different ways of imagining or using affirmations that genuinely resonate, like you can genuinely get behind and that you can really feel into. Like that it sparks that like internal reaction. It invokes an internal reaction, an internal response. Like saying affirmations for the sake of saying them, I mean, yes, of course, there's been people that have had success with robotic affirmations and just saying it over and over and over again. But um, I mean, for myself personally, feeling is truly the secret. Believing is truly the secret. Trusting is truly the secret. So maybe it would not hurt to experiment and play around with either different types of affirmations that invoke that response, invoke that feeling within you, um, or things like visualization, SATs, doing more in the drowsy state, and see if that helps. Since I'm into Neville's teachings, I don't care about the time anymore and realize that my reflections come more faster in. I manifest my SP in my dream life as a business singer. That's incredible. Hell yes. Amazing. Amazing. And yet that's a really important point because that is absolutely a paradox here. The less we focus on the time, the less attention that we give to the time, the faster they come in. And I know it's frustrating. I know it can be really frustrating. Um, but truly, we want to get ourselves to a place where we're not dealing with or considering the time. The less we focus on time, the faster it will show up. I promise. Going back up. You guys are so sweet. Isn't the unfolding or bridge of incidents sort of related to waiting in time? Things unfold in order to bring us to our manifestations in the 3D. So it's not always instant in the 3D, correct? That is so, yes. The 3D appears to be linear time, right? Here in this 3D, things seem to operate on linear time. So it operates in a series of events, unlike the 4D, where we can experience something instantly. Instantly, because in 4D there is no like past or future, or like, we can experience anything at any time in 4D. In this three-dimensional world, it appears to be running on linear time. So that's why we talk about the bridge of incidents, because again, things appear here as a series of events. Um, but it shouldn't feel like waiting. That if we are truly and genuinely in the Sabbath, it shouldn't feel like we're waiting around for it. Like we're checking our watch, we're checking our clock, we're checking our phone. No, that is typically an indication that we may not be in the state that we want to be in. Yeah, that is feedback we want to be mindful of. I mean, that said, it is possible to experience instant manifestation in 3D. To be clear, I'm just talking about the way that we perceive it, the way that we are conditioned to the 3D world is that it operates on linear time. When it comes to imagination, I can't really visualize. Instead, of visualizing, I give myself more the feeling of the experience and imagination. Does that count? Yes. Yes, that counts. Mhm. Like I said, it doesn't mean that we have to visualize. It doesn't mean that we have to have a clear image in our mind per se. I know everybody's imagination is different. Some people can see things very vividly in their mind's eye. Some people, like those who have aphantasia, don't see anything. It's just black. It's just darkness, right? And then that used to be the case for me. So it's not that we have to visualize, and that's why I really try to emphasize the um, that imagination and visualization are not the same thing. To be clear. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, there was a couple. Damn it! I'm so sorry I missed yours, Christy. I'm just checking to see if you had a question. Um, there we go. What about wanting to leave marriage? Do I focus on him breaking it off or myself? And do I picture myself actually moving or the end at a new place? Good question. So if what you desire is, a separation, moving on, going your own way, I would go straight to the end. I wouldn't be concerned about what takes place in the middle there, so to speak, or like how that bridge is going to unfold per se. I would see myself in my own place, enjoying my own apartment or house or what have you. Things that would imply that the two of you have separated and you're living your life, right? Um, so first get clear on what that would look like for you, and what would be some things that you would be doing as somebody who is newly single or on your own, and really just get as clear of a picture on what that looks like, and imagine that and go there. And thank you for the super chat, Nan. How do you build trust with SP/relationship? He refuses to invite me when he goes out. He says I'm too insecure. Please advise. I'm so sorry. Um, we, I mean, I think the first important thing here is, number one, building trust in the law, but two, the concept of everyone is you pushed out. That there are infinite versions of every person, including your SP. There are infinite versions of your specific person, which means that there is that version already who is adoring you, that loves spending time with you. That already exists. And we know this because we are able to imagine it. If we can imagine and experience it in 4D, it could be something experienced in 3D. So I would build trust in the law itself. If it feels like there may be questions or hesitation, uncertainty, that you are the operant power, if that feels like something that you don't fully believe or maybe don't fully get behind, building your trust in that. But also, everyone is you pushed out. Everyone is you pushed out because we can see it. We can see that people show up in the way that we assume them to show up. If I have an assumption about somebody, I'm going to see them show up in that way. Right? Secondly, I would really take the time to focus on you and seeing yourself as somebody who feels secure, somebody who feels confident, somebody who knows herself, knows her worth, and trusts herself. When we talk about and emphasize the importance of self-concept, this is why. Because the mirror is not going to change if we do not change. Or, we may see a temporary change in reflection, but if we still have the same beliefs, the same assumptions, fears, insecurities, that's what we will ultimately see a continuation of. So, number one, building trust in the law. Number two, building yourself, becoming and being the person that you desire to be in imagination. Yeah. Oh my goodness, you guys are amazing today. Thank you for the super chat, Roy. Neville and I share a birthday, and it's tomorrow. That's right. It is Neville's birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Neville. And happy birthday to you, too. In my most vivid experience of SATs, I was trying to do SATs for a scene of SP, but I got a visual of a figure walking away. 8 of Cups. I was upset. Uh, so when you were in SATs, you were aiming for a scene with your person, but instead you saw somebody walking away from you. Well, we can change that. We can change that. If something while imagining, if something does come up, if something intrusive comes up, if something unwanted comes into your mind, pops into imagination, I mean, we can change that. We can drop that and redirect our attention. And in fact, one of the best things that we can do as far as practice goes is strengthening and training the direction of our attention and focus. So that if something undesirable shows up, whether that's an intrusive thought or something on the outside, we can be better at directing our focus and saying, nope, I am not accepting that. Right? Because our mind at first, what we're going to quickly find is that our mind is very much like this wild animal. It not very disciplined. It's going to want to go where it wants to go. It's going to feel like intrusive thoughts come up all the time. That is normal. So I would implement something like a focused attention meditation in your day-to-day. Just even a meditation practice in general is going to be of so much benefit and use. That is probably, no, that is hands down one of the best things that I did, was just a daily meditation practice. I'm truly, I am sorry that that experience was upsetting, but just know that you do not ever have to accept it just because it showed up for you in imagination, or even if something showed up in 3D, that is not ideal. You never have to accept it. And with practice, you're going to get better and better at anytime something does come into the mind that's not wanted, you're going to get faster and faster at redirection. Yeah. Yeah. And happy birthday, Tracy. Oh my God, girl, I didn't even see you here. Hello. This is for Miss R, who wants to help but can't make a super chat. She has a question about her son with, oh my goodness. Oh, Tracy, you are so sweet. Oh my God, you are such a good soul. Thank you for that. For Mrs. R. I'm so sorry if that was missed. Yeah, Mrs. R, if you could post the question again, that would be fantastic. I am so sorry if that was missed. Not gonna lie, I get easily, I get lost sometimes, and I'm so sorry about that. I try to stay in order. Keyword try. Your question's at the beginning. Okay. Bear with me, guys. I cannot find the. Damn it. I cannot find the question. I'm looking. It's at the very top. I don't see it. That's weird. Some of the earlier chats when we first started are not there at the top anymore. That's weird. Mrs. R, if you could do me a huge favor and just retype that question, because if it was at the very top, like when we started the live, I guess um, I guess not all the questions. Yeah, because a lot of the questions from when we first started are not there anymore. Weird. I didn't know that was a thing. Yes. Yeah, if you could repost it though, because I cannot find the original question anywhere. I see a couple times you had commented, but I cannot seem to find the original question. And if you could just, and I'm so sorry, if you could just repost that, that would be incredibly helpful. Yeah, I cannot see anywhere the reposting of that question. I see a question about manifesting two SPs at the same time. Is it that one? Um, I mean, you can do anything. Can you do imaginal acts on both? Can we plant both seeds and let the universe work out, or will they cancel each other out? Um, you mean have two different people and kind of see which one sticks? Mm, I mean, we could. We could if it feels like you're uncertain or y you're okay with whichever shows up. Yeah, yeah. But if there's one that you prefer over another, ideally, we do want to define that aim, define what we desire, um, ideally. But if you're okay with whatever happens, I mean, yeah. Hi, Missy. My son is waiting for an interview for admission at a secondary school. I know we are at the end of the waiting list and the deadline is end of February, but I have faith it will resolve. Um, uh, I admire his trust, but I'm afraid he might be disappointed. I know you say not to intervene once the seed is planted. I do stats every day, but I find it hard to just do nothing. I know, yeah, and this is important. I know it goes against our ego nature to do nothing. I know that it's one of the hardest things for us to do is nothing. But there's nothing else we can do to aid the realization of the desire. Once the seed is planted, once we have it fixed that this is done for us, if we go to the end, right? And you see that your son is already in school, like if you are imagining in sets that he is already in this school, he's already enrolled, he's already been accepted. Once that seed is planted and we trust that, it has to happen. If you're still noticing fears and doubts coming up, because manifesting on a deadline is more likely to invoke fear, it's going to be sometimes more difficult for us to live in the end because we're noticing the time creeping closer. Um, Number one, to the best of your ability, continue to just saturate your mind with already be seeing him in school. He's already enrolled. He's already been going. It's 2 weeks into the new year or new semester, and he's loving it so far, right? That implies everything that needed to happen did happen. And once we reach that place of Sabbath, once we reach that place where it feels done for us, there is nothing, nothing else for us to do. Nothing. The only thing that we're doing is like, don't interfere with that seed. Like, leave the seed alone. Leave the impression alone. And I know, like, that's all ego and that's all our conditioning to want to take actions and do things to make things happen faster. We have to reject that temptation because after it's impressed, it's in God's hands. It's in God's hands. It is no longer in the conscious ego self. Like there is nothing left for us to do. Yeah. Hi, Missy. My SP and I are in contact again after 2 months. They said I'm really important to them, but still emphasize that we cannot date due to reality issues. How do I visualize after these moments? I would revise. I would revise those conversations 100%. If any time somebody says something to you, if somebody does something for you, if somebody shows up in a way that is not ideal and they're expressing things that you don't want, revise it either on the spot or at the very least before you go to bed that evening. And imagine instead that you heard exactly what you wanted to hear. Imagine him telling you the words that you want to hear. And really saturate the mind with that. Yeah. Because if we're continuing to accept what they're telling us is true, we're going to keep getting the feedback pattern. Revision is our best friend. You are so welcome, Mrs. R. I'm so sorry I missed that earlier. But Tracy, you are an absolute gem of a human being. How to make your ex fall in love with you again? I already kind of know he misses me, but I doubt he will take any action. What do I do? Um, Change the doubt that he will take action. That's got to change. If we hold the doubt that he's going to do anything, that he's going to take action, that he's going to want to make this, work, that's what we will see out pictured. We do not want to hold on to that assumption because that's all an assumption. That's all that is. And so that is the assumption we must change, which is why it's so important for us to continue to go to the end as if it's already happened. Like it's already done. So all of the action that needed to be taken was already taken, right? But if there's still those assumptions and they're like, he's not going to reach out, he's not going to take any action, he might miss me, but he's not really going to do anything about it. That is the part that needs to change. Yeah, don't hold that assumption. Mm-mm. If I feel like I'm not wavering, but they say it's not but they say if it's not in 3D yet, you're wavering. This is so confusing. Yeah. Um, so by wavering, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are like having two extremes of emotions per se. Wavering or double-mindedness is just what you are aware of being and what you are accepting as true. Like, so if we are constantly noticing and becoming aware of the absence of it in 3D, what are we accepting as true? It's not here yet. It's not here yet. It's not here yet. It's not here yet. Which is why we got to take our attention away from the 3D. We have to take our attention away from the 3D. And I know that this is the hardest part, bar none, by far. But the more that we are conscious of being absent of our desire, what is the mirror going to reflect from that? If internally I'm accepting that as my truth, what is the mirror going to reflect? More of not having. Yeah. Nice, Chi-Chan. I always say like Neville Goddard's kind of an introduction to non-dualism. Perfect segue into the everything is, all things is, consciousness is all things. Love it. All right, I got time for maybe one or two more. I love you too, Tracy. I'm trying to keep going, not get discouraged, and let the 3D to not make me more depressed and anxious. But the 3D reality is always saying the opposite. Heed, no commitment, no relationship me. Yeah. Again, I know that this is the hardest part by far. We're constantly checking the 3D and taking as fact what the 3D is showing us, as if change is never possible, as if once something happens in 3D, it is fixed that way forever. But it's not. In fact, the only constant, the only thing that doesn't change is the fact that change is always happening. The only constant is change. So if something is crap in the 3D right now, am I going to accept that as final? I mean, we can, if that's, it's always our choice. That's the free will that we have. But I don't recommend it. And this is why I say, like, this is a practice of going within. If it feels too difficult, though, if you're feeling discouraged, if you're feeling upset, like, it is more than okay. Not just okay, but it is absolutely recommended. If you need to take a break, take a break. If you need to take care of yourself right now, take care of yourself right now. If this is feeling like it's too much, then by all means, like, your mental health and your well-being comes first, always. Period. Point blank, end of story, full stop. But if, like, how do I say this? If we are aware of being somebody whose SP is rejecting us, if that is what we are conscious of being, if that is what I am accepting as my truth, that is what I will continue to see until I break that assumption, until I change that assumption, until I change myself. That's why I say it is the self that must change. But again, that said, if it feels like you need to give yourself some time to, like, rest, recharge your batteries, feel better, please do that. Don't overlook your well-being and your mental health right now, okay? I mean that. I know how easy it is to get stuck in a feedback loop of just terrible shit. Yeah. But the main thing that we are aiming to learn here is not giving into the 3D and not accepting what the 3D is showing us as final. What we see in the 3D currently is all out picturing of things that we imagined in the past. That's it. That's it. Period. When does coaching open up again? Next week. Oh yeah, that was something I should have mentioned that earlier at the beginning. One-on-one coaching does open. The waitlist for one-on-one coaching opens up next week. So if you are interested, check information down below and sign up on that waitlist. Y'all are amazing. I'm gonna meet you someday. I hope so. Let's go get some coffee. Let's do it. Do you got a vape pen there? I do. I do vape because it is delicious candy. And as Abdullah says, we don't need to get caught up in our quibbles. Too many quibbles is not fun. Don't let the 3D tell you what to believe about yourself. Yes, amen. Amen. Yes. Amen. Where is your cat? I don't know. I don't know. It's so quiet in here. Oh, goodness. Hi, Missy. When we hear that we are God, what exactly does that mean? Important question. Important question. Okay, because this one can get very confusing and sound downright blasphemous. I know. When we hear that we are God, what we are not referring to is the individual ego self. It is not Missy Renee that is God. It is not the individual ego self, the limited thinking mind ego self. That is not God. Sometimes we mistake that to be because we hear, oh, I'm God. Like I'm a powerful God. I'm going to rule everything around me from the. No, not the ego, the awareness. Our awareness of being, that is God. So that sense of consciousness that we all of us have that consciousness, all of us have that awareness that I exist, right? I am aware of being Missy Renee. I am aware of the thoughts that Missy Renee is having. I am aware of the experiences that Missy Renee is experiencing. That awareness, that is God. Because every single person on this planet says, I am. Every single person has this awareness that I am, right? That awareness, that is God. Check out the video that I made, The Power of I Am. Check out that video because I know that this one can be tricky for us to accept or confusing. We don't really understand what that means. That awareness that is aware of the thoughts that we have, aware of the circumstances that we have, the observer that is observing all of the things, that is God. That is God. So non-dualism. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. On that note, you guys, I would love to stay and hang out all damn day, but unfortunately, I do have to wrap this up and get going. My apologies if I missed anyone. Sincerely, I'm so sorry, but I do this every Sunday. So do please join me. I hope you all come back next week. I hope we can hang out again for another round of Q&As. But in the meantime, you guys, love to all of you, every single one of you. I hope you are well. Stay well. Know that you are loved. Know that the 3D doesn't ever fucking matter. All right? Take care. Be good, you guys. Until next time.